You can count when you're happy. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can count when you're sad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or count when you're frightened. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Count when you're mad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Counting is wonderful. Counting is marvelous. Counting's terrific. And how?
The episode opens with Clark fixing a leak in the plumbing at the Talon with his heat vision when Lana's not looking, getting his white shirt all wet and setting the mood for their relationship to improve and become more romantic, predictably just in time for a sudden return of Whitney Fordman, who left Smallville last season to become a Marine and who we learned last episode has been lost overseas for a month. When he shows up in full uniform at school and starts moving toward Lana in slow motion, the entire student body collectively parts like the ocean for Moses, almost as if the entire universe revolves around the show's principal characters and like their movements have been blocked by a director. But wait, this guy can't really be Whitney, right? We seem to see him get blown up in the teaser. It's evident as soon as we meet him that something weird is going on, and no thinking viewer could for even a second buy that there's any chance this is actually Whitney, the way the script piles on the not-so-subtle clues. He claims to have extremely selective amnesia, so that he can conveniently forget everything the real Whitney should know, especially recent events, like Lana's breakup video letter. That's right, this has all been a small subplot building all season, because, as usual, the writers still can't come up with anything really interesting for Lana to do beyond moving toward a romance with Clark at a snail's pace. And he's suddenly got super strength, which he explains away to Clark as just new skills he gained training as a Marine when he gets so angry that Lana and Clark are getting along that he rips off a bathroom stall door. When Whitney throws Clark off his front porch after Clark suggests counseling for post-traumatic stress, what did he think was going to happen? Clark finally thinks to x-ray him and sees that his bones are laced with meteor rock, just like shapeshifter Tina Greer's in the episode X-Ray. And at precisely that moment, Whitney reveals to his mother and to the audience that he really is Tina Greer. Turns out she escaped from an institution and her plans have changed. Instead of killing and becoming Lana, now she's decided she's in love with Lana, so she replaced Whitney to be with her. Surprisingly created for your average Kryptofreak, really. But when she finds out Lana tried to break it off with Whitney and that she's getting closer to Clark, she, once again, uses Lana's necklace against Clark, trapping him in his storm cellar. Because who doesn't love a hero who gets bested by the same bad guy the same way twice? Tina tries becoming Clark to be with Lana, but Clark's ship flashes and neutralizes the kryptonite in the necklace, so he's able to escape and save the day. After that standard scene where somebody tries to pick out the real version of the main character from two duplicates we've seen in every sci-fi show ever, Clark fights Tina while she's still in Clark morph and impales herself on a conveniently placed metal spike. Things aren't looking quite up to code out back behind your coffee shop there, Lana. The subplot involves another potential breakup, this time between Lex and Helen, who Lex has learned from a private investigator accepted $100,000 from his father, Lionel. Without giving her a chance to explain, Lex jumps to conclusions, runs a background check on her, and she storms out, saying she wants nothing to do with him. At the end, they start to patch things back together when Lex practically begs her to give him another chance, but in a deceitfully less pathetic Luther way, telling her that he doesn't want to be his father, but he needs her to help break down the, quote, wall he's built around his heart. It's funny that there's a pop song called that's used in a Smallville episode, but it's not this one. Meanwhile, word comes the very next day after Tina's death that Whitney's body has been found. Gee, how convenient. I guess we better get all that wrapped up so Lana can have her big blubbering speech in the cave about how bad of a friend she's been to Clark and how she's tired of everyone she cares about leaving and dying, and she says she doesn't care that Clark has secrets, she just doesn't want to lose him too. Yeah, we'll see just how long that lasts. Then credits. This is one of those episodes where the production value and entertainment factor far outweighs the teleplay. It's fun to bring back a Kryptofreak, and the idea of keeping it a mystery half the episode is fun. I even like the twisted morbidity of Tina pretending to be Lana's probably dead ex-boyfriend because she's in love with her. But the episode shows its cards too early, and as long as you've seen every episode so far, the twist is actually pretty callable. I called it when this aired the first time. What I really like about it are the performances. Lizzie Chaplin has far less screen time as Tina than everybody else, else as Tina, though she's still having a lot of fun playing the deranged Lana stalker, and the cast is all doing a fantastic job consistently portraying the shapeshifter. Smallville is notorious for its characters who aren't themselves episodes. There are at least a couple of those most seasons, sometimes more, and it's really fun to see these actors playing another character pretending to be them without it actually being them, so we don't have to watch them lose their memory of everything that happened at the end just so we can return to status quo and make the whole ordeal pointless for character progression. Eric Johnson really sells it the whole episode, getting a fair amount of screen time in his last major appearance on the show, minus a flashback later, but oddly only playing the real Whitney for a couple minutes at the beginning. It's not that performance where the episode is trying to trick you by having the actor play the role straight until we know who it really is, then suddenly it's a different performance. He seems like a different person throughout, like seeing someone who's uncomfortable wearing someone else's clothes. John Snyder really shows off his skills in the brief scene where Tina pretends to be Jonathan Kent, nailing that demented pleasure Tina gets out of hurting people to get what she wants. I also love how over-the-top Tom Welling is when he's playing Tina, especially when he just loses it and yells, "Why won't you just die?" And appropriately, the one time I was fooled for a moment by Tina was when she pretended to be Lana in the hallway, just before she goes all Pink Ranger on Pete. Lana's the character Tina has had the most practice trying to emulate, both physically and psychologically, and I like that she's the one Tina gets most right. I have no idea where she got the karate moves, and that comes off as a little silly. It's weirder because it won't be too long before Lana herself starts training with Lex and fighting just like that. Then again, Chloe does make a Power Rangers reference, calling Tina the mighty morphing power girl, which I liked. Maybe Tina watched some Power Rangers growing up and her crypto power is so close she just can't help herself. I like that Lionel is getting between Lex and his new girlfriend in more than one way. He apparently tries to pay Helen off if she'll break up with Lex, but Lex's upbringing, as always, is also getting in the way. His instincts are to treat her like the enemy at the first sign of treachery, and what he doesn't realize is that she tried to refuse the money and Lionel routed it anyway. The sad thing is, Lex really has led a life that makes it nigh impossible to trust people. It's endearing trying to watch him play against those instincts, but when you get in his head, it's uncomfortable, because if he lets his guard down and gets burned again, his impulse is going to be to embrace his father's philosophy of looking at life as war and treating everyone as an enemy twice as vigorously as he has before. There's also some great innuendo in some of these scenes with Lex, which is primarily what I always watch the show for. I like it when Lex is confiding in Clark about Helen, and Clark says, "If I knew someone was investigating me, I'd be a little ticked off too." Lex pauses for a brief second, knowing Clark doesn't have a clue about how close he is to the same scenario. I think I'm starting to lose count of how often people in the show treat Clark like a raving lunatic in favor of someone who turns out to actually be a raving lunatic, especially Chloe and Lana. Lana does it here again with fake Whitney, who tells Lana Clark ripped apart the bathroom in a jealous rage when it was really him/her who was responsible for that. Clark's not exactly a master at tact when he just blurts out, "No, he's lying." But really, Lana? This soon after Dichotic, with a guy who split himself in two and played you and Chloe both before trying to murder you, you're not gonna listen to the guy who saved you from these psychos over and over again? She does redeem herself a little at the end of the episode for owning up to how badly she's been treating him. This really is something she should have apologized for a long time ago. But that scene only works if she really means it when she says, "I don't care that you have secrets." Otherwise, she's going to come off as even more selfish than before, only turning on the waterworks there for some momentary comfort. So I'm giving this episode props for setting up a good opportunity to mature Lana, but if you've watched past this episode, you know that doesn't stick for long. At all. Smallville seems generally incapable of pulling off mysteries most of the time. Here's a friendly hint about effectively executing a story like this. If you want your audience to question whether or not someone has died, don't kill that character off before the credits. I get what it thinks it's doing. We know Whitney isn't coming back, so it's creepier and stranger to see him there, with everyone else not knowing it isn't really him. But I think it's taking too big a risk by treating Tina like such a big plot twist. It's like it wants us to know part of the mystery, but obscure the biggest piece. And if you know the show, this is the only way it could possibly turn out. The veteran TV watcher in me is trying to call the reveal, so I'm thinking, what have I seen in the show so far that could explain this? Clearly, if it's someone else, it has to be someone we've seen before, otherwise it isn't a very satisfying reveal. And with the flaky amnesia excuse and the super strength, that's the only explanation. So who do I know who can look like other people and has super strength? Oh, it's Tina. I really think it would have been more satisfying if it went one way or the other. Either try to really make us think it's Whitney and have Tina be a little smarter about how she goes about it, or else tell us it's her from the beginning. and I prefer the former. It's always better to be in your protagonist's head as they try to figure out what's going on, rather than being in the villain's head and knowing it from the beginning. I also don't like that Clark thinks to use his X-ray vision when he does for no reason other than the script wants to show us it's Tina now, and it doesn't want to do that before Clark knows it, so she morphs just after he sees her, just for our benefit. Why didn't he use his X-ray vision earlier? What about falling on his butt made him think of that? There's a potentially interesting psychology with Tina I think could have been explored, while as it is, she is still just a psycho, and everything she does can be explained away by an extreme chemical imbalance mixed with a meteor power. You've got a girl with a case of mistaken identity in X-ray, who's been mimicking Lana, her idol, with such ferocity it's become an obsession, and she ultimately wants to replace her, even if it means killing her, which she's able to do because she conveniently gets the power to morph into other people. She loves something so much she has to control it. It reminds me a little of Stephen King's Misery. Then here, for no explained reason, she's gone from wanting to be Lana to wanting to be with Lana, which seems like an odd psychosis unless that's what it was all along. And that I find interesting. Extreme behavior like this usually comes from a really insecure place. A place of feeling something, not understanding what you feel, and acting on impulse because of fear. Admittedly, I'm reading a little outside the lines here because there's really not enough in these 2 episodes to support what I'm about to say. But I feel the need to suggest it because I don't like how haphazard a motive we get for Tina, excused by insanity. There really should be more going on here. She says trying to kill Lana was the worst mistake she ever made, and now she loves her. What if she loved Lana the whole time? What if her obsession with trying to become Lana was the closest she thought she could get to her? Because what she was really going through, another sort of identity crisis, was a realization that she was interested in girls. In a pretty conservative town like Smallville seems to be, living with a single, likely conservative mother in 2002, when people are a lot more accepting of homosexual behavior, but not to the extent a lot of people are today, I could buy that this is confusing for her. She might not even realize what she's feeling, and it manifested as an unhealthy roleplay scenario. Then while she was locked up, something happened that made her realize what was really going on in her head, but she knew Lana would never accept her, and again, maybe being in love with girls doesn't really fit into her worldview, so she feels like she has to become a man to be with Lana. And also, of course, it's a good strategy. Lana likes guys, so if she looks like a guy Lana likes, maybe it'll work out for her. I'm not saying that's the only way the episode could have played the psychology, but we are looking at a girl who's into another girl and has a massive identity crisis. Playing it that way might have made for an interesting commentary on high school pressures and expectations and exploring personal identity. At the same time, I do appreciate that Tina's apparent homosexuality isn't flaunted, and I think the show could have made this a psychological exploration rather than just another psycho murderer without putting on the neon sign that says, "Look at us, we're edgy and contemporary because we have gay themes in our show." And I think it could have explored Tina's psychology without making any sweeping judgments about anybody's ideologies. Just the tragic story of a confused girl who doesn't know what to do with her emotions and her superpowers and ends up the bad guy at the end. And now questions to ask Jarrell when I get to heaven. What war is Whitney fighting? The Iraq War didn't start until 2003, so this must be some generic war with some generic country that everyone on the show is familiar with, but they're conveniently not telling us anything about. When this was on TV, I remember thinking that was a really bizarre choice. Whitney goes to war, he's fighting for his country. Doesn't matter who he's fighting or why, he's just fighting, and it's noble and patriotic and stuff. And now let's head over to the scoreboard. Well, it's a standard Kryptofreak episode, so the count looks about like you might expect. We've got 2 instances of Clark being affected by green kryptonite, both with Lana's necklace. We've got 1 repeat Kryptofreak. We've got a love triangle with, of course, Clark, Lana, and Whitney, kind of. It's actually Clark, Lana, and Tina. We've got 1 instance of somebody walking away angry. That's Lana when Clark calls Whitney a liar. We've got 1 bad guy death, and we have 1 instance of convenient unconsciousness. I'm going to give Visage a 3 out of 4. There are some missed opportunities, but this one's surprisingly entertaining, and the actors are having a lot of fun, which is quite contagious. Was there anything I missed in any category? Leave me a personal message on Geekvolution, and I'll be sure to add it to the count. I'm Captain Logan. Consider this episode counted.